Dr. Alice, it's nice to see you. So our first question is, will green energy be able to entirely replace fossil fuels? Should we be aiming for a complete replacement or a specific reduction of fossil fuel usage? And sort of relatedly, we heard a couple of questions about this yesterday, and I would love for you to consider this. What would be your thoughts around offsetting emissions to aid the net zero agenda? Or do you think offsetting just distracts from the real solution of minimizing those emissions in the first place?
Thanks so much, Eva, for these great questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate your thoughts. Polly, I want to go to you next. Dr. Alex just talked about renewable sources of energy, and I loved your optimism around them and that we will continue to innovate and we're going to make great strides. Well, some people on the platform, some of our audience are a little concerned about whether or not we can sustain that kind of enthusiasm about innovation. And they asked, will renewable energy projects remain attractive in the UK without subsidies and once the level of RES in the system increases further, thus lowering energy prices? So I know that you consult with a lot of companies and you probably have some really good thoughts on this. So if you could share them with us, that would be great. Well, Amy, first of all, bravo, congratulations. But then also, I love that you talk about global cooperation. And so, Sam, I'm going to come to you and ask you a question that sort of also involves whether or not we can have some global cooperation around your area of expertise, and that's transport. So there was a lot of conversation between yesterday and today about the cost and feasibility concerns of more environmentally friendly transportation, specifically in developing nations. Whether electricity grids can keep up with demand, whether congested cities can actually accommodate charging stations that would be required, whether we could just use solar energy as a direct charging method. And I would love to hear your take on some of these concerns. And then could cities in developing economies learn from the UK and vice versa in decarbonization areas, such as EV charging and public transport? And could some developing cities effectively leapfrog technologies and get to a better solution faster, in your opinion? I'm normally not at a loss for words, but I'm just trying to adjust everything you said. I mean, such great information. And I love how you take it back to what John Pettigrew said at the very beginning, and that is that we can't leave anybody behind. It has to be an entire global effort, and some countries need to take responsibility, especially if they've benefited, for taking care of other countries. And speaking of that, Dr. Allah, thank you, by the way, for coming back 2 days in a row. We really appreciate that. There does have to be a balance, and one person asked in Slido, developing countries are discouraged to move to net zero since they have so little greenhouse gas emissions compared to the US and China. So first, what can be done about US and China? And second, why is it still important for developing countries to move to net zero as well, even if they don't bear the same responsibilities or do it at the same pace as some of these other industrialized nations? Well, that is wonderful. Thank you so much. I think when I promised an expert panel, I did not overpromise. I really appreciate this discussion so far. Dr. Nick, I would love your thoughts on what everyone's talked about, and I would love for you to carry us into the next portion of our discussion, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, it'd be my pleasure, and it's fantastic to hear those inputs from the experts we've got on today's panel. Back to you.
Dr. Nick and everybody, I can't tell you how grateful I am for you today. There were so many golden nuggets in this conversation, and as much as we identified as problems and things that we need to fix, there was so much enthusiasm and optimism coming out of each and every one of you. I love this idea. If we could, I've already got an idea. If anybody does commercials or advertising, go reflect on how everybody was so happy during COVID because planes weren't flying, because cars weren't on the road, because you could bike and spend some time outside with your friends. And it turned into a positive, and we could say, don't you want that world without the COVID again? Just so many great things here, and really that everyone can impact the world on a personal level, take stock in the things that we all do and say, how can I bake at a certain hour? Or in my case here in the US, we get credits for turning off the air conditioning. So we just, put on tank tops and shorts and we get $25 in the mail. How fantastic is that? So thank you everyone so much. You're all fabulous. I'm really excited that everyone got the opportunity to meet all of you. I encourage everyone to connect with these panelists and everybody else on this forum through the networking opportunities on the platform. Don't forget, everyone, to make a pledge in the networking dome to go hashtag one step greener. And finally, we're going to be completing the tabulations on the leaderboard. And for the lucky winners, we will be in touch with you. We will not forget about you, don't worry. And we'll let you know what you've won. Well done, everybody, for engaging so fully in our conference. My name is Eva Saha. It has been my absolute honor and pleasure to serve as your host. Everyone be well, take care, and thank you for being a crucial part of the Green Revolution. Have a great one, everyone.